In this video, we're going to look at how you can write a linear equation based on a series of figures or a pattern that's been provided to you. I've already set up a table of values down below, which tells you the number of blocks in each figure. And you could do that yourself by simply adding them up and recording them. Well, where do you begin to write an equation? The first step is to determine what's changing from one figure to the next. You have to establish a pattern. Well, we have 3 blocks in figure 1, and it looks like we've actually increased the number of blocks by adding 1 to each end. So figure 2 has 5 blocks. Figure 3 has 7 blocks because, once again, we've added 2 new blocks to the ends. The way I like to represent this is in my table of values, I'll show how it's changing from one figure to the next. And I'll notice that it's changing by 2. I've already determined that. It's also kind of important to first make sure that your figure number is only increasing by 1, because if it's increasing by more than 1, it's a little bit more complicated to try and figure it out. You actually have to work out the change from one figure to the next. But it is increasing by 1, so we're good to go. I can use the same pattern of increasing by 2 to predict what figure 4 would have, and it would have 9 blocks. And if I wanted to, I could make a really, really big table of values that could let me predict anything that I wanted. So figure number 100 if I felt like it. But that would take a long time to do. It's a lot easier and it's a lot faster to just make up an equation based on the pattern that we've identified. And here's a basic process that you can follow to do that. And it'll work for any of these examples. If you take the number of blocks, this is our dependent variable, and we take the size of the change that we've already determined to be 2, and we multiply that by our independent variable, which is the figure number, this might describe the pattern that's occurring. But in a lot of cases, you're either going to have to add or subtract something from your change times the figure number in order to have a true representation. Well, how do we figure out what we might have to add or subtract, or whether or not this even works at all? Well, I like to take one of my figure numbers, so figure number 1 as a starting point, and I'll substitute in the number of blocks, the change, which I just determined to be 2, and the figure number. And I'll leave a little space to add or subtract something. I'll just put an addition sign here to begin anyway. That's where I start. I think to myself, 3 is equal to 2 times 1 plus something. What do I have to add to 2 in order to end up with 3? Well, my answer is going to be 1. And that will leave me with 3 equals 3. So let's just test this out. The same process of the change times the figure number plus 1, and see if it works for our second figure that we have. So let's substitute in the number of blocks in our second figure, which is 5. We'll take our change and we'll multiply it by the figure number, which is 2. And I'm going to add 1 to it and see if both sides of the equation are equal. Well, 5 is equal to 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1. Well, 5 equals 5. This works out. So my equation now, I've determined it to be b equals 2 times the figure number plus 1, and that will be your linear equation.